My name is Maya Wynne. On the coldest night of December, I stood beneath the chandelier of the Halcyon House and watched the doors breathe out white fog from the street. This was my party, the annual gala for the Quiet Classroom Foundation, the small nonprofit I built after too many evenings shouting through dead microphones. We fix the physical things that silence students. The hissing radiators, the doors that refuse to close, the speakers that die mid-sentence. Tonight the room itself felt like a promise kept. The quartet tuned, the sponsor wall glowed. Linen napkins stood like small white sails ready to cross the evening. 10 years ago, on another winter night, my mother, Teresa, convinced my boyfriend, Ethan, to marry my sister, Lila. She called it protecting the family from embarrassment, her favorite word for other people's dreams. I learned then how fast love can be repackaged as logistics. I didn't fight on stage. I left through a side door and began building rooms where my voice did not need someone else's permission. "Final sound check in 5, said Savannah, our event planner, floating past with a clipboard that looked lighter in her hands than it ever looked in mine. "Your speech after the quartet. The ring light is merciful, and yes, we triple-checked the mics." She squeezed my elbow and vanished toward the stage. Donors arrived in careful suits and good intentions. Teachers arrived in their best jackets, carrying the kind of tired only good people carry, the tired that means something got done. My friend Noah texted from the coat check, "Breathe, it's just a room." I typed back, "It's the room they took from me once. I want it back." The elevator opened. Teresa stepped out in a coat that looked like a verdict. Lila shimmered behind her in champagne satin, the color chosen to look like the word effortless without the work. They paused as if the air should curtsy. Luis, the doorman, gestured them forward with the calm of a harbor that has already seen storms worse than this. "At least you finally learned how to host," my mother said, her mouth arranged the way you arrange a mantle. "I learned how to build," I answered. Lila kissed the air near my cheek. "Congrats," she sang, sugar on the surface. "It's tasteful." Her eyes added, "For you." I smiled and checked the time. Across town, my husband, Julian, was finishing a meeting. He has a way of arriving exactly when a moment needs weight, never loud, always felt. He'd texted earlier, "Ready when you are." I typed one word back, "Soon." The quartet began its first piece. The room hushed the way good rooms do, not by command but by consent. I could smell orange peel in the mulled wine and faint pine from the giant fir near the balcony. Glasses chimed. Heels tapped like small exclamation points. In the center of the floor there was a half-second where the lights pooled softly on the mic, and the whole city felt like it might lean in. A donor with silver hair extended a hand. "Ms. Wynne, I'm proud to be here," she said. "My 6th grade homeroom had 1 good speaker and 27 loud opinions. If you can fix that for anyone, I'm in for another year." "Thank you," I said. "We try to make rooms tell the truth. Truth is expensive," she said, "but cheaper than the alternative." Savannah returned with a final nod. "We're live in 3, she whispered, and the mic on the podium blinked its small green approval. I glanced at the main doors again. Not yet. Let the room settle. Let the room see itself. Let the room remember who built it. Before a person leaves, there is a library of small signs that say go. I misread all of them as patience. Ethan and I were college sweethearts with broke recipes and elaborate plans. noodles and thrift store plates, late-night bus rides, and big talk about someday. Then he interned at a firm where the elevators smelled like lemon money and the conference rooms looked like refrigerated museums. My mother decided his future needed armor I could not provide. She ironed Lila's dresses with military precision. She brought Ethan soup at his desk and corrected his posture with a palm between his shoulder blades. She called her friends and described an elegant wedding that did not exist yet, as if saying it would make it moral. Lila posted photos with captions that wore modesty like a hat. Humbled, grateful. Timing. They rehearsed a story in public until it seemed like the only story allowed to live. The night Ethan ended us, Teresa poured tea I did not drink and arranged her face into a portrait of firmness. "It's time to be realistic," she said. "Love is timing. Lila is ready." "I'm ready," I said. My voice sounded like a chair pushed back from a table. "Ready is not enough without the right alignment," she replied, turning the cup so that the handle faced me, as if the problem were simply access to porcelain. Ethan stood by the window and looked at the city like it had answers. He was gentle, which sometimes feels worse than cruel. "You deserve someone more certain," he said. "I'm trying to think about the future." "You're thinking about a brand," I said. "It looks like you." Lila arrived 5 minutes late, which was part of the choreography. "Maya," she said softly, each vowel polished, "we don't want to hurt you, but we want to be honest." I considered the word honest, its uses and abuses. I thought about the way some people wield it like a knife wrapped in tissue. "Then use smaller blades," I said, and stood. I didn't beg, not because I am strong. I wasn't, not that night, but because begging gives authority to the wrong judge. I packed 3 boxes, a skillet that could survive anything, and 2 books too heavy for any bag. I signed a sublet in Soho with plumbing that clanged like a band rehearsal. I taught evenings, I temped mornings. I learned to write grants the way some people learn to pray, daily, precisely, without expecting applause. I kept receipts like love letters. I stopped explaining my choices to people who profited from my confusion. Ethan married Lila in a venue that appears in magazines when money wants to prove it can dance. My mother wore navy and satisfaction. The photos were all light and angles. I did not attend. I worked, then slept, then worked again. After a year, I had a spreadsheet named Hope that balanced. It was more beautiful to me than any dress. There is a specific quiet that comes from solvency. It does not shout. It hums. One afternoon in a borrowed church classroom, peeling paint, heater banging like a tired drum, a kid named Amari fixed a broken mic with a paperclip and said, "Ms. Wynne, if they could hear us, we'd be less loud." That sentence built a mission. I registered the Quiet Classroom Foundation and memorized the feeling of a notarized stamp hitting paper. Small thud, big future. The first donors were not rich. They were people who had been talked over. A bus driver whose union hall had 1 good speaker and 1 good secretary. A violin teacher who had learned to warm her hands around a space heater before lessons. A nurse who said she'd never heard the end of a sentence in her high school gym. We replaced a pair of speakers, then a whole row, then a room full. We posted outcomes the way bakers display bread, plain, warm, enough. When trolls asked for proof, we gave them dates, invoices, and a video of the teacher not shouting for the first time in years. The comments fell quiet in the way facts make them quiet. I met Julian during a fire inspection. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets and asked questions that showed he was listening. He had a reputation for buying old buildings the way other men buy stories about themselves. He preferred the buildings. "I grew up in rooms where teachers had to shout," he said. "I thought it was normal." It was common, I said, not normal. He came back on a volunteer day with no cameras and a hammer he actually knew how to use. He looked at our books and found them clean. He saw the spreadsheet named Hope and tried not to smile, failed, and smiled anyway. A year later, we got married at a courthouse with coffee breath and a Japanese maple out front that looked like it had set itself on dignified fire. Aunt Min cried through the vows. Noah forgot the rings and produced 2 copper washers that, for a moment, looked like the most honest jewelry in the world. My mother sent a card that said, "I hope you find what you think you want." It was the last time she wrote to me without also writing to Lila. I didn't build a life to spite anyone. I built it to have a life. Sometimes those are the same thing by accident. Back at the Halcyon house tonight, I watched my mother adjust a centerpiece as if hydrangeas could file for divorce. Lila filmed herself walking and would later call it behind the scenes. The quartet settled on something delicate and generous. The mic light blinked green. Savannah handed me a backup copy of my speech like a rosary. I slid a plain white envelope, law firm logo calm as a metronome, into my clutch. Not as a threat, as a map, in case the night lost its way. The Halcyon house used to be a bank. You can feel it in the bones. Vault doors polished into decor, a high ceiling built to make voices small, marble that remembers shoes from other eras. Tonight, light softened the hard edges. Strings of warm bulbs braided under the balcony. Candles stood along the banquette like patient sentries. The quartet settled into a piece that felt like snow, landing exactly where it should. Savannah pointed with her pen, and the world obeyed by inches. A chair moved 2 fingers to the left. A centerpiece turned 6 degrees to show its good side. She glanced at my shoes and then at the rug. "You'll float," she said, which is event planner slang for "you won't trip in front of money." Carmen, our MC, tested the mic and winced. The sound tech lifted a thumb. "Working now," he said. The gentlest miracle at any benefit. Carmen leaned toward me. 2 minutes, Ms. Nguyen. You want the intro warm or hot?" "Warm," I said. "Let the room arrive with me." Teachers drifted, over tugging at jacket cuffs that only behave in photos. "You clean up nice," Ms. Alvarez whispered, then hugged me hard enough that the evening made room for it. The 3rd graders wrote cards. "Do you want them before or after?" "After," I said. "They'll land better with cake." At the far table, my mother lifted a hydrangea, inspecting petals the way jewelers inspect stones. "The stems are uneven," she told nobody in particular. Lila filmed the flower arrangement, then herself, then her dress. "Behind the scenes," she murmured to the camera, "because nothing is real until it is content." A donor named Evelyn took my hand in both of hers. "I taught in a cafeteria that smelled like ketchup and despair," she said. "We had 1 good speaker and 1,000 bad acoustics. If your little outfit can change that for anyone, I'll keep writing checks until my pen runs dry." "Thank you," I said. "We try to make rooms tell the truth." "Truth is an expensive contractor," she said, eyes bright. "But see." Heaper than lies, Noah slid beside me. Tie askew, grin intact. "Breathe," he said. He pressed a folded copy of my remarks into my palm. "In case the universe eats your clutch." I laughed and tucked the pages behind the law firm envelope. My thumb found the raised logo through the paper. Quiet thunder. Luis appeared at my elbow. "Everything all right, Ms. Nguyen?" "Everything is exactly itself," I said. He nodded like a man who has seen nights turn and knows the signs. If you need a door opened or kept closed, you tell me which. Across the room, Ethan had not yet arrived, or he had and was using corners to slow his own entrance. Lila's laugh carried like a small bell, bright, precise, a little too practiced. Teresa adjusted the table settings a second time and congratulated herself in a tone that sounded generous if you didn't understand it. Savannah's hand hovered in my peripheral vision. 90 seconds, she said, and Maya, eyeline 3 inches above the first table like you're telling a friend a secret they're definitely allowed to share. Got it. I walked the perimeter once, touching the marble rail, the lacquered wood, the velvet rope that now cradled the entry rather than guarding it. A decade ago, I would have tried to be interesting. Tonight, I was interested. I caught little details and anchored them. A man teaching his son how to knot a tie near the coat check. A pair of teachers practicing how to say thank you without sounding like they might cry. The way the room's buzz dimmed when Carmen stepped toward the mic. And now, she said, smile easy, voice silk on the PA, the reason we're all here. She builds rooms that tell the truth. Please welcome the founder of the Quiet Classroom Foundation, Maya Nguyen. Applause moved toward me like a tide that knew my name. I stepped into it and felt steady. From a distance that mattered, Teresa watched as if she were judging posture. Lila changed phones, then angles. Evelyn clasped her hands. Ms. Alvarez dabbed her eyes. Noah mimed, breathe, long and slow. I set one hand on the podium and let the room finish arriving. I want to start with a paperclip, I said, and the first laugh told me we were together. I used to teach in a borrowed church classroom, I said. There was a heater that banged like a temper and chalk dust that never really landed. One night the mic died, and a kid named Amari fixed it with a paperclip. If they could hear us, he told me, we'd be less loud. We started this foundation the next week. Heads tilted, teachers in recognition, donors and discovery. I gave them numbers like stepping stones. 15 rooms in the first year, 42 by the second, 112 by year 4. I named schools without making them saints, named donors without making them gods. I showed 2 photos, before and after, of a cafetorium that used to swallow sound and now passed it hand to hand like bread. We were good together, the room and I. Then my mother's bracelet rang the glass, a bright accidental chime that wasn't accidental. Lila pivoted to catch me from a forgiving angle, chin lifted, shoulders square, the posture of a woman who believes a lens will rescue her from Conti. We like to say kids need to find their voice, I continued. They do, but rooms have voices too. Some rooms shout, some rooms whisper the truth. We build rooms that tell the truth and then get out of the way. A murmur, a soft amen from somewhere near the teacher's table. Teresa let out a little laugh like a cough wearing jewelry. And sometimes rooms need better hosts, she said, floating the words above the tables as if she were back at our family dinners rehearsing her favorite sport. A few guests chuckled, more at confusion than humor. I smiled, the way decent teachers smile at the back row when it tries itself. Absolutely, I said. And we learn. I clicked the remote and a short slideshow began. Thank you notes in shaky block letters. A gym painted the color of the sky instead of sadness. A teacher pausing mid-sentence just to admire the fact that everyone could hear the pause. From the doorway, a gust of winter. Ethan arrived, thinner than I remembered, cheekbones a little too eager. His suit wore him. He kissed Lila's temple and missed by a centimeter. Teresa's hand fluttered toward him. Come, "Sit where the camera can find you." And he obeyed, because rehearsals become habits. Ms. Alvarez stepped forward from the teacher's table, lifting a bundle wrapped in twine. "Sixth graders," she whispered to me. "For after." "Perfect," I whispered back. The slideshow ended. Applause rose and settled. Carmen returned to the mic with the ease of a person who knows how to shepherd a crowd. "We'll take a brief stretch," she said, "and then I'll invite Ms. Nguyen back for a few updates and one very special announcement." Lila arrived at my shoulder with a smile that clicked like a clasp. "Loved the paperclip story," she said. "So scrappy." "Accurate," I said. "We donate," she added, turning halfway so her profile could have its moment. Quietly. "Try consistently," I said. "It photographs better." Her eyes flashed, then cooled. Teresa came up behind her, stance neat as etiquette class. "You do look presentable, Maya," she said. "That dress is almost elegant." "The kids helped pick the color," I said. "They think I look like a highlighter." Teresa's mouth twitched, a small loss she would invoice later. "Will you be gracious tonight?" she asked. "I will be accurate," I said. "Accuracy is a kind of grace." Ethan finally approached, cautious, as if greeting a mirror he doesn't remember buying. "Maya," he said, each letter polite. "You look accomplished." "Teaching suits me," I said. "Lila says you always liked projects," he offered. "Rooms," I said. "I like rooms." "Still the same," he said, meaning not the same at all. "Still not merchandise," I said. Carmen's voice lifted again. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll settle in, Ms. Nguyen will share where we're headed next and how we get there." I glanced toward the main doors, then down at my phone. A message from Julian waited from 5 minutes earlier. "Here when you want the room to listen." I typed one. Word. Now. Savannah met my eyes from across the floor and nodded. Luis stepped discreetly toward the entrance. The quartet retuned, crisp and calm. The PA purred. I took my place again at the podium, resting my fingertips on the smooth wood, and felt the room lean forward as one body. "Thank you," I said. Before the update, a note of context. Some of you have known me since I was a first-year teacher with a box of chalk and no voice left by Thursday. Some of you met me tonight. All of you deserve the same thing. A room where the truth can speak at the volume it needs. A door sighed open behind the guests. Heads turned a few degrees on instinct. I let the second stretch, then smiled. And here's someone who believes that too. The doors opened without drama, the way good doors do when the timing is right. Julian walked in with his coat over his arm and a folder tucked under his hand. He does not stride. He arrives. People who recognize him recognized him. Those who didn't still felt the air lean in his direction, as if someone had opened an extra window and the room remembered how to breathe. He crossed to me with an ease that had nothing to do with wealth and everything to do with paying attention. He kissed my cheek, no performance, just presence, and whispered, "Do you want me on stage or at your side?" "At my side first," I said, "then on stage." Carmen felt the moment and guided it as good MCs do. "Friends," she said, "we have a partner here tonight who understands exactly what it means to make rooms tell the truth. Please welcome Julian Park." Polite applause flashed into real applause. Julian lifted the mic and let quiet form around him. "I believe in quiet work that changes loud lives," he began. As a kid, I watched teachers spend energy shouting that they should have spent teaching. As a developer, I've seen how walls can hold sound like a friend or throw it away like an enemy. The quiet classroom foundation is not glamorous. That's the point. It works. Lila adjusted her phone angle to catch him in a halo of light. Teresa straightened in her chair, the kind of posture that says, "I would like my credit in advance." Ethan watched Julian the way climbers watch someone who knows another route up. Julian continued, "In the last 12 months, this team retrofitted 28 rooms in 7 buildings. Attendance improved. Disciplinary incidents dropped. Teachers stopped going home hoarse. 2 students asked their teachers to please turn the volume down because they could finally hear the page turning. The room laughed softly, then hushed itself, impressed by the mundane glory of page turning. He set the folder on the podium and clicked the remote. The screen brightened to AS, Impel Timeline. Rooms completed, costs posted, before and after decibel readings, days saved from repairs that used to take months. "We talk about impact like it's a storm," he said. "This is more like weather finally behaving." The applause that followed wasn't loud, it was sustained. Ms. Alvarez clapped with both hands and her whole heart. Evelyn nodded like a woman checking off a list she'd been ready to check for years. Noah gave me a quick thumbs up and mouthed, "See? This is why we do spreadsheets." Julian looked at me, then at the folder again. "I've pledged to fund the next 3 buildings," he said. "But I didn't come only to pledge. I came to correct a record. Not the past. No one here needs the past litigated at a party. But the record of what people can expect in rooms like this. From people like us." Teresa's bracelet chimed once against crystal, an accidental bell that wasn't accidental. Lila's brows pinched, a small shock that the moment wasn't about her lens. Julian handed the mic back to me and took a step to the side. Not out of the frame, just enough so the frame could expand. I felt the room recalibrate. I felt myself do the same. "Thank you," I said, and the PA carried the words without effort. "Here's the update you came for." I outlined the pilot to retrofit 3 more schools with the funds already pledged tonight, then introduced a new program, a teacher microgrant for classroom fixes under $1,000, with decisions made in 48 hours. Teachers cheered like people who spend months waiting for things that should take days. Donors smiled like people being asked for something human-sized and necessary. Then I glanced at the far table where my mother and sister presided. "And one more thing," I said, steady, "about rooms and hosts. You can renovate a room and still ruin it if the people inside won't tell the truth. So we tell the truth." Julian rested a supportive hand on the podium's edge, just enough weight to ground the moment. Nodded to Savannah. The screen behind me shifted from numbers to faces. Teachers, kids, custodians, a crossing guard, each one saying one sentence about how the new sound had changed their day. Nothing dramatic, everything true. The last clip ended on a custodian named Mr. Romero, standing in a hallway, no longer shrieking with feedback, saying, "Now I hear what they say when they're happy." Applause again, warm, full, the kind that rolls through people rather than over them. I could see cracks forming in the old story my family had written around me, the way you can see a frozen river thaw from the edges first. Lila glanced toward Ethan, hunting for solidarity and finding only his careful neutrality. Teresa lifted her chin. Carmen returned to the mic. "We're going to open the pledge line in just a moment. But first, Ms. Nguyen will answer 2 questions. Then, dessert. A hand shot up from the second row, the reporter from the local paper. Where does this go next? 3 more schools by S. Pring, I said. Then 3 more. Impact lives in the boring long run. We plan to be boring for a very long time. A laugh, approving. The second hand belonged to Evelyn. How do we help without making you invent projects to feed our vanity? Ask us what failed and back that, too, I said. We publish the misses next to the wins. That keeps everyone honest, especially me. There are rooms where a line like that would land as theater. In this room, it landed as a promise. Carmen took the mic again to set up the pledge moment, and I stepped aside to the podium's shadow. Julian squeezed my fingers once. You doing okay? He asked. I'm doing accurate, I said. He smiled, proud of the word. From a corner of the ballroom, Luis caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. Ready, if you want the next door open. I nodded back. Soon, I thought, not yet. Let the room finish breathing. Dessert entered like a parade that had learned discretion. Little plates landing in front of people who needed sugar to anchor their feelings. The pledge line bloomed on the screen, names appearing quietly, no dollar figures, only initials and in honor of notes that told you everything you needed to know about a community. I took the mic again for closing remarks. Before I could speak, Teresa stood without invitation and lifted her glass. To my daughters, she declared. Her smile held like a bridge made of ice. To the one who knows how to host, and to the one who finally learned to be presentable. The room went polite. It is a skill, the way wealthy rooms can generate an atmosphere of courtesy on short notice. The skill is not the same as kindness. Thank you, Mother, I said, and willed my voice to be the kind of warm that does not burn. And thank you for coming tonight to support our work. Lila stepped closer to me, her camera already rising for the perfect angle, as if proxy. Mighty to the mic, could substitute for content. We've been supporting for years, she said, aiming the sentence toward the nearest ear that might repeat it. Quietly. Consistency is a kind of quiet, I said. We like that kind. You've changed, Teresa observed, as if she were offering a weather report. You used to be sweet. I used to be silent, I said. Those are different. Carmen sensed the wobble and smoothed it. Friends, a reminder. When you give tonight, you're not buying a headline, you're repairing an echo. And now, Ms. Nguyen's final note. I thanked Carmen with a glance and looked to the back of the room, where the projectionist hovered near his controls. He met my eyes, alert. I looked at Julian. He tilted his head. With you. I looked at Savannah. She lifted the remote. We have one more slide, I said. This one is not about rooms. It's about what we allow inside them. The screen shifted to a simple statement. Accuracy is a kind of grace. Beneath it, a line of text. Tonight is for classrooms, not gossip. But there is one record I need to correct. For anyone who knew us then and would rather not continue the fiction. A soft stir moved across the room like wind through tall grass. I saw people who knew me from the before, the friends who watched me disappear without explanation because I did not offer one. I thought of the years I gave to being dignified in private, the labor of not answering cruelty with spectacle. I thought of paperclips, of Mr. Romero's hallway, of the way sound behaves when you refuse to lie to it. 10 years ago, I said, I left a family script that did not have a role for me, except supporting character. I chose not to litigate it in public because no one learns from public litigation, except the audiences that come to shout. Tonight, I'm not litigating, either. I'm acknowledging. Julian stepped forward, Not to take, but to offer. Placing his folder on the podium. "We're not here for anyone's humiliation," he said into the mic. "We're here for accurate context. Ms. Nguyen built this room. She built this work. There were people who told her she wasn't enough to stand where she's standing. Those people were wrong." Lila flushed, the kind of pink that clashes with champagne satin. "Is this necessary?" she asked, not to me but to the room, which is how people ask a crowd to save them. "Yes," I said. "Necessary is what you say when medicine tastes bad and you take it anyway." Teresa's face became a mask of serenity, which is how denial tries to look expensive. "Family matters belong in family rooms," she pronounced. "Then family should tell the truth in those rooms," Julian replied gently, and the word gently did more work than any gavel. I lifted the top sheet from Julian's folder. "I'm not sharing secrets," I said. "I'm sharing a boundary. Some of you saw me vanish. Some of you were asked to pick a side in a story you didn't write. You don't owe me allegiance. You do deserve clarity." The screen did not form into a scandal. It held instead a timeline of my life since I left. The church classroom, the first check, the first 6 rooms, the first school that sent us a photo of a teacher not shouting. A note at the bottom read, "Some stories age well when you let the facts breathe." The room exhaled. Someone near the back, Evelyn, I think, said, "Onward, the way you bless a boat leaving harbor." I set the papers down. "That is all," I said. "The rest we keep where it belongs, in conversations with people who can carry them." The applause this time was not relief and not celebration. It was recognition. It moved in waves, teachers first, then donors, then the people who had come to be seen but accidentally saw. When the clapping softened, Ethan stepped forward, hands open like a man approaching a skittish animal. "Maya," he said. I was weak. I let myself be handled. I thought marriage would fix ambition. It didn't. I'm sorry. The room did not gasp. It adjusted, like you do when a chair wobbles, and you put a folded napkin under one leg. I met his eyes, felt the small ache of the old map, and set it down. "Thank you for saying it," I said. "Be different over there." I tilted my head toward a space that didn't include the mic or my life. He nodded, relief and something like grief wrestling on his face, then stepped back beside Lila. She did not take his hand. Her camera trembled, and for the first time all night she forgot which side was her good one. Teresa tried one final time to reclaim the narrative. "We protected you," she said, chin high. "From what?" Julian asked. It was not a challenge, it was a request for a noun. She had no noun that didn't sound like herself. Carmen, master of thresholds, stepped back in. "Friends," she said brightly, "you have been extraordinarily generous." Before we let the quartet play us into good conversations, I invite you to write a note at your table, one sentence about a room that changed your life. We'll post a few on the screen. Let's end on the truth we can all agree on. Chairs gathered people closer to tables. Pens clicked. Teachers began scribbling. Donors leaned toward memory. Luis adjusted the door so it would close softly against the winter. Savannah exhaled for the first time in an hour and grinned at me like a conspirator whose conspiracy was kindness. Julian set his hand at the small of my back. "Accurate enough?" he whispered. "Exactly," I said. The quartet found a melody with a spine. and the ballroom became what it was meant to be, a place where voices did not have to be loud to be heard. Carmen's prompt worked better than any crisis management could have. Heads bent over cards. The sound in the room shifted from performance to memory. Pens made small scratching noises, like mice in a good attic. The screen began quietly cycling one-line notes as they came in. My grandmother's kitchen table, no one interrupted there. The auditorium where I sang once and believed it. A biology lab that smelled like mint gum and hope. The church basement that ran out of chairs because everyone stayed. The words held us, a soft net. Julian leaned to me. "You can leave it here if you want," he murmured. We already landed the plane. I watched Teresa's jaw tighten like a fist. I watched Lila rehearse a caption that would turn this night into an anecdote where she shone. I watched Ethan stare at the card in front of him as if a sentence might write his way out. "I want a quiet landing," I said, "and a clean runway." Savannah approached with our lawyer, Grace Lynn, dark suit, dark hair, brace, 8 eyes that noticed exits without fear. "If you still want the housekeeping note," Savannah whispered, "Grace is here." Grace bowed her head a fraction. 2 minutes, no spectacle, she said, as if reading the sign I kept taped inside my mind. I returned to the mic while the quartet held a soft chord under the room, like a hand under a step. "Before we close," I said, "a quick housekeeping note. Accuracy is a kind of grace. We keep receipts of rooms, of grants, of decisions. When rumors get louder than records, we publish the records. Grace?" Grace took the mic like a person accepting a scalpel. "Good evening," she said. "I represent the Quiet Classroom Foundation. We maintain written policies on conflict of interest, donor privacy, and staff conduct. We also keep a file of corrected narratives, a folder for misunderstandings that persist because silence tried to be polite." She paused just long enough to let the phrase settle. "With Miss Nguyen's permission, and with redactions that rose, respect everyone's dignity. We've archived a timeline of decisions relevant to her role here. Dates, filings, board minutes. If anyone needs clarity, we can provide the timeline tomorrow. Tonight is for the work. No screenshots, no gotcha. Just clarity. Promised like fresh air." She handed the mic back. The screen behind us displayed a neutral slide. "Receipts available. Rumors belong to yesterday. Thank you for staying with the work." Evelyn clapped once, loudly, the way a judge might bang a gavel when a courtroom remembers itself. It triggered a wave of relieved applause, not the wild kind, steady, grateful. Lila blurted, "What are you implying?" Her voice hit the marble and came back thinner. "Nothing," I said. "We're concluding." Teresa stood again, but Carmen stepped neatly between us with the reflexes of a seasoned host. "And with that," Carmen said, smile precise, "we open the dance floor and the dessert bar. Write your last note. Pin it to the board by the balcony. If you pledged, your team will greet you with warmth and pens that work." The room moved. Relief disguised itself as motion. People rose, adjusted jackets, discovered suddenly that they were thirsty. The quartet slipped into a familiar standard. Ms. Alvarez handed me the 6th graders' cards. I held the bundle to my chest, the way some people hold flowers. Ethan hovered at the edge of the sponsor wall. "May I?" he asked, nodding toward the board where notes were being pinned. "Write something true," I said. He took a pen, and after a long moment, pinned a card that read, "The dorm lounge where I made the wrong decision and called it the future." It was not enough. It was something. Lila approached Grace. "You can't publish private messages," she snapped. "We won't," Grace said, calm as a receipt, "unless they're lies about our client's integrity. Then we publish exactly enough truth to close the rumor and not one syllable more." "That's aggressive," Lila said. "It's conservative," Grace said. "Aggressive would be entertaining. We don't do entertainment." Julian and I drifted to the balcony. Winter pressed its face against the glass. The city did that trick it does, looking both infinite and small enough to hold. "That was surgical," I said. "Grace has a steady hand," he said, "but you did the hard part." "What part?" "You didn't let the past be the point." We stood in companionable quiet, the kind where you can hear the room enjoying being itself. Teachers clustered near the DJ, failing and then succeeding at dancing in shoes built for sitting. Donors experimented with small moves they remembered from weddings. Teresa sat rigid at her table, a statue in a museum of a story losing its plaque. Lila filmed the boomerang of a cupcake and nearly smiled when the frosting looped perfectly. Evelyn joined us at the balcony. "I'm old enough to have seen rooms pretend to be generous," she said. "This one is generous by accident." "That's the real thing." "Thank you for coming," I said. "I'll keep Co." "Ming," she replied, "the work feels like groceries. Necessary, not glamorous. Those are the only things I trust." Before she left, she tapped the note card board with her knuckle. "Pin yours," she said to me. "Leaders forget they're allowed to have a sentence too." I wrote, "A borrowed classroom where a paperclip fixed the mic and a kid fixed my job." I pinned it between Granddad's porch and the bus that didn't go past my stop anymore, so I walked and thought. Later, when the evening thinned, I found Lila's card, a bridal suite where the mirror lied. I didn't know if it was an epiphany or a performance. I pinned it anyway. Rooms are generous when you let them. Near the coat check, Teresa cornered Julian with a smile sharpened into a blade. "You've emboldened her," she said. Julian considered the word. "Maya emboldened herself," he answered. "I just stand where I'm asked." "You enjoy this," she said. "I enjoy accuracy," he replied. "And my wife." Teresa blinked at the word wife, as if it were a diagnosis she did not want to accept. She opened her mouth, closed it, and chose retreat disguised as dignity. "Good night," she said, though it wasn't. Back on the floor, Savannah lifted her clipboard like a conductor's baton. "Last call for pledges," she called. "And please, write a note before you go." We're building a wall of true sentences. Grace gave me a tiny bow on her way out. "I'll email the archive link in the morning," she said. "Password protected. You decide who gets it." "Thank you," I said. She tucked her hands into her coat pockets. "Congratulations on keeping the light on without setting anything on fire." "High praise," I said. She grinned. "From me, it is." The quartet played us toward conversations. The notes on the board multiplied. The truth, politely, held the room. After the speeches and the notes and the slide that promised receipts instead of rumors, the night softened into the kind of party I had hoped for. People talked the way people talk when they feel safe. Not loudly, not in a rush, but like they might get to finish their thought. The dessert table did heroic work. The pledge desk did too. A teacher named Mr. Patel told me about a student who had started sitting closer to the front since the sound improved. He said, "Now I don't have to watch your mouth to understand you," Mr. Patel said. I didn't know I'd ever get to hear that sentence. I thought of the first time I stopped shouting and realized I still had a voice left for home. I thought of the nights I went to bed with a whisper, a win. Noah arrived with 2 waters and a slice of cake on a napkin. For the founder, he said, like the word itself was a candle. Did we do it? I asked. We did it without losing the plot, he said. You kept the camera on the work. Lila kept the camera on herself, I said. He smirked. Cameras are mirrors that lie on command. Ms. Alvarez came to claim her 6th grader's cards and found me reading one. Thank you for fixing the gym. It used to sound like a train had a fight with a bee. I laughed, then cried a little, then laughed again, because this was not the night to apologize for either. Take a picture, she said, and text it to me when you forget why you do this. I made a folder called Forgetting, I said. It has 4 photos in it. This will be 5. At the sponsor wall, Ethan stood under the logo lights as if trying out a new silhouette. He caught my eye and lifted an almost wave. I nodded, polite, no invitation. He came anyway, stopping 2 respectful feet away. I meant what I said, he offered, voice steady now that the performance was over. I hurt you. I hurt myself. I thought being chosen would fix the part of me that didn't want to choose. The part that doesn't want to choose, I said, always wants applause. But it's never full, I'm trying to learn hunger from a different place, he said. It's late. Late is not never, I said. Just don't ask the room to clap. He surprised me. I'm tired of clapping, he said. He looked at the board of notes. That one, about the dorm lounge, that was mine. I saw, I said. It's a start. Take care, Maya, he said. And for the first time in 10 years, he left a conversation first. Lila materialized as soon as he cleared the air. Camera returned to her best angle. You love an audience, she said. I love a room, I said. You made me look like a villain, she hissed. You made you look like a brand, I said. It didn't fit the lighting. She blinked, then went for the old weapon, pity shaped like concern. Mom is devastated. Mom is practiced, I said. She can practice something else. She was protecting us, Lila tried. From nouns she never learned to name, I said. From the embarrassment of other people making choices she didn't script. From a daughter who didn't want to be an accessory. Lila's jaw worked. You think you're better than us. I think, I said carefully, that I stopped selling parts of myself to pay the toll for rooms that don't deserve me. That sounds expensive, she said, because in her world the worst thing was to spend more than you had. It's worth every cent, I said. She looked at Julian across the room, talking to a custodian about a fix for a door that stuck, and rolled her eyes. You married a savior. I married a listener, I said. Different job description. She faltered, then decided on a new approach. I posted an apology, she announced. You should like it. You should mean it, I said. What does meaning look like? She asked, genuine for one sliver of a second. Fewer announcements, I said. More receipts. She opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded once, quick and embarrassed by the nod itself. Fine, she said, and left to find a better angle for herself. Teresa approached last, the way queens approach when the court seems restless. She stood, not quite close enough to be intimate, not far enough to be dismissed. You humiliated this family, she said. I corrected a record, I said. You could have done that privately. I did, I said. For a decade. She exhaled through her nose. A horse hearing a gate open it didn't ask for. I don't remember saying the things your lawyer hinted at. I took my phone from my clutch but didn't unlock it. Then you won't mind apologizing for them anyway, I said. We can call it a blanket apology for poor memory. You have become cruel, she said. I have become accurate, I said. Cruelty drags people into a room and makes them watch. Accuracy sets the room's temperature so everyone can breathe. She stared at me, taking the measure of a daughter who no longer waited for permission to exist. Your father would hate this, she said, a final attempt to borrow a ghost. My father taught me to finish my sentences, I said. Finishing one. Something in her face softened. Exhaustion, not concession. I wanted you safe, she said quietly. I am, I said, and I'll be safer if you stop trying to manage the weather. For a second, we looked like a painting of a meeting that could have gone either way. Then she stepped back, nodded to some imaginary court, and went to collect her coat. Julian found me by the balcony and passed me a tea from a carafe I hadn't seen arrive. Hot, he said, with lemon. For a voice that didn't have to shout, we watched the staff begin their invisible choreography. Trays that refilled themselves, glasses that disappeared before they looked lonely. Savannah reviewed a list with the pledge captain and grinned. 3 schools funded, she mouthed to me, then pointed to the dessert bar. And 2,000 calories still to go. Carmen drifted over, her feet finally forgiving her shoes. You did it, she said. No one will remember the flirtation with drama. They'll remember the cards, and the custodian, and the phrase about accuracy. Good, I said. Let them remember the work. She tapped the mic with a knuckle, habit, and winced. Still on, she muttered, then laughed. I'm going home to a cat who believes I invented the can opener. Tell your cat the truth, I said. I'll publish receipts, she said, deadpan, and vanished into a coat like a magician returning to civilian life. By the door, Louise was helping a teacher into a scarf that had betrayed her by becoming longer than any human neck. You the founder? He asked the teacher with a nod toward me. She is, the teacher said. Good work, Louise said to me, not loudly. Door felt different tonight. Thank you for opening it, I said. Thank you for telling people when to stop holding it, he replied, which is a doorman's way of saying boundaries are a safety feature. When the last guests were drifting toward ride shares and the band was packing up its kindness, Noah appeared with a clipboard. Sign here, he said. What is it? An acknowledgement that we did something boring and beautiful, he said. Auditors love those. I signed. The night at last began to fold itself into morning. Let's send the notes home with us, I said. We'll build a wall in the office. A wall of true sentences, Noah said. Very on brand. Very necessary, I said. Julian gathered my coat and draped it over my shoulders. The lobby breathed cold, then let us go. Outside, the city had the decency to be ordinary. Delivery trucks, a stray laugh, a siren far away doing its job without asking me to care. We walked to the car like people who had earned the right to be tired. Tomorrow? Julian asked as he opened my door. Emails, I said. Thank you notes. Pledge confirmations. A nap. And family? He asked, a gentle question, not a command. Boundaries, I said, and an inbox with a filter. We drove home on streets that know how to keep secrets. In the rearview mirror, the halcyon house slowed, then shrank, then became a small square of light that meant someone else was cleaning up, turning off, getting ready to make it beautiful again. Some rooms you leave on purpose, some rooms you carry. Tonight I carried the sound of a custodian in a quiet hallway saying, "Now I hear what they say when they're happy. It would be enough to sleep on." Morning smelled like coffee and cardboard. The boxes we'd used to ferry leftover centerpieces to schools were stacked by the door, like cheerful soldiers waiting for assignment. Julian fried eggs the way men do when they're proud of a small skill that has nothing to do with money. We ate standing up in sweaters, feet bare on cool tile, the city outside already making weekday noises as if last night had been a rumor. My inbox had multiplied overnight. Subject lines from teachers sounded like exhale. We heard each other. My voice didn't crack by noon. Sixth period sat closer on their own. There were notes from donors, quick and practical. Processing pledge. Invoice me for the microgrant pilot. Do you accept ACH? I answered with sentences short as stitches and felt the day start to hold. Grace's email arrived at 8:11. Subject, archive link, receipts, not rumors. Inside was the clean machinery I love. A short preface, the password, a list of redactions. Share only with the curio, us and the responsible, she'd written. If anyone wants a scandal, I recommend a novel. I smiled and forwarded the link to exactly 6 people who had earned it by asking the right questions without entitlement. Raphael, our volunteer PR manager, texted from a bus somewhere in Queens. "You want me to pitch last night?" Headline, "Quiet wins the room." I replied, "No press. A thank you thread to attendees is enough." He sent back a thumbs up, then, "I'll seed photos of the note wall to our own channels. No commentary. Receipts breathe better without a narrator." At 9, Noah and I synced over video, hair damp, mugs steaming, the non-profit look. We pulled up the new microgrant queue. Teachers had already submitted modest miracles. Replacement foam tiles for a corner that echoes. 2 lapel mics so kids can present without shouting. Door sweep for a 9th grade room that whistles in winter. We approved the first 5 in 15 minutes. I loved the speed. Change shouldn't always require cert. 3 schools funded from last night, Noah said, ticking boxes with a satisfied click. And a teacher in Sunset Park wrote that she cried only during the slideshow, not during last period. That's progress. Add it to the annual report, I said. The crying metric, trending down. Julian appeared in the doorway with his laptop under one arm. "Ms. Nguyen," he said, mock formal. "Your board member requests an audience on the sidewalk. We're delivering centerpieces to School 29, and I will, of course, carry the heavy box." I grabbed my coat. "Of course, sir," I said. "Please remember to look photogenic while lifting." "Never not," he said, and bowed. On the way down in the elevator, my phone vibrated with 2 messages, stacked like uninvited guests. From Lila, "I posted an apology. Like it?" From Teresa, "Family dinner tonight? We should talk like adults." I stared at the screen until the elevator dinged. I typed to Lila, "Mean it first, then receipts." I typed to Teresa, "After you admit what you did." She sent back, "I don't remember." I attached a photo of the slide with her old text and hit send. 3 dots rose, sank, rose again, then vanished. Silence. Useful. A border drawn by omission. School 29 smelled like pencils and new paint. The custodian, Mr. Romero, the one from the video, met us at the front door with pride disguised as shyness. "You brought the flowers," he said, surprised at the small ceremony. "For the staff room," I said. Rooms deserve to feel like they matter even when kids aren't in them. He took the box as if it were breakable happiness. The music teacher says the new panels make it sound like the kids are all in the same room, he told us. Before, it was like they were trying to sing from different houses. In the third-floor classroom, Ms. Alvarez, different Alvarez, this city has many, showed me the decibel app on her phone and grinned like a magician with a new trick. She knocked on a desk, then on a panel, then snapped her fingers, the red. Things dipped and steadied. It's not loud, it's layered, she said. Now I can hear the kid who thinks before he speaks without making him compete with the radiator. She passed a thank you card drawn in 6 colors. A small figure labeled teacher stood under a speech bubble that read, I can talk normal now. Julian checked a hinge with Mr. Romero and promised a carpenter by Friday. He is not the kind of man who hands out his card like confetti. He hands out schedules. As we left, he held the door, and the hallway sound, that familiar school burst of everything, never once turned into a shriek. Back in the car, my phone lit again. Ethan, thank you for not turning me into a headline. I typed, headlines are loud and die fast. Work is quiet and lasts. He wrote, I want to volunteer. I stared at the words and thought of the dorm lounge card he'd written. I typed, start by listening. Wednesdays, 3 to 5 p.m., Church Street site. Don't post it. He wrote, okay, see you Wednesday. It felt like handing someone a broom, not a trophy. It felt right. At noon, we held our tiny staff meeting around our tinier conference table. Savannah ran the debrief like a pilot filing a flight plan. Wins, she said, and we named them. Not like trophies, but like addresses. Misses, she said, and we posted them on a whiteboard without apology. Seating plan too tight near table 5. Dessert forks arrived late at the teacher table. The mic battery dipped once at 8:17. Nothing scandalous. Plenty human. Next year, Noah said, let's add a 5-minute note-writing window on purpose. It did more than any speech. Agreed, I said. We'll design it in. Latte cups emptied. The office smelled like cardboard, then like printer toner, then like resolve. When everyone returned to work, I opened the 3 messages I'd been avoiding. 2 from reporters, 1 from my mother. The reporters wanted angles. I replied with a PDF of the annual report and declined interviews. My mother wrote, I am willing to talk. I wrote, I am willing to listen to an apology, and I am willing to propose family therapy with a neutral third party. She wrote, therapy is for people who can't control themselves. I closed my laptop and let the sentence sit there like a broken ornament. You can't hang anything from it. It will cut your fingers if you try. The afternoon took on the industrious quiet I love. Approvals signed, pledges logged, a spreadsheet named Forward christened for next quarter. At 4, I walked to the river with Julian and thought aloud the way people think when they've earned a day of outcomes. He listened, hands deep in his coat pockets, a man at home in winter. You did the hardest possible thing, he said at last. You told the truth without asking for applause. I did ask for comments on our donor form, I said, and he laughed. Best kind of applause, he said. It pays invoices. When we got home, someone had left a package at the door. Cream paper, no return address. My name in a hand I recognized from childhood chores. Inside was a photograph of the note wall from last night, printed on thick paper. Pinned in the middle, a card that read, A bridal suite where the mirror lied. Tucked behind the photo, a short handwritten note. I don't know how to fix what I am. I will start by telling the truth. I'm sorry. Lila. Beneath it, a screenshot of a transfer, a brand deal she'd declined with a note redirecting the budget to 3 microgrants in our queue. First receipts. I sat on the step and cried. The quiet kind. The kind you can hold without drowning. Julian read over my shoulder and wrapped me in his coat like a second room. It's a beginning, he said. The second envelope, smaller, held a single sentence from Teresa written in careful, old-fashioned script. I am sorry I mistook ambition for love. The page trembled. The handwriting did not. It wasn't absolution. It was a noun. We convened the board in a room without chandeliers, because decisions prefer plain ceilings. Coffee steamed in paper cups. Papers aligned themselves into small obedient cities. I called the meeting to order, and the title chair felt less like a throne and more like a good pair of shoes, made for walking, not display. We ratified the microgrant timeline, 48 hours from request to decision, 10 days to installation. We formalized the note wall into a program, true sentences, to be displayed in each partner school, a living testimony that rooms shape people, and people can shape rooms back. We voted on 3 new sites, chosen not for optics but for need, measured in decibels and attendance, and the number of times a teacher wrote, "I went hoarse," on a timesheet. When we adjourned, Noah stuck his head back into the room and said, "We forgot something," then held up a laminated card. It read, "Be simple, be specific, be steady." "I found it on your desk," he said. "Can we make it a post?" "Make it 3, I said. "One for here, one for the gala kit, one for me." In the week that followed, rooms behaved. That's the only way I know to say it. Ms. Alvarez sent a video of a kid presenting a science project into a lapel mic while his friends actually listened. Mr. Romero reported that the stairwell no longer sang like a broken bottle. A principal wrote that her teachers had stopped bringing whisper-only voices home and had rediscovered conversation with their own families. Our accountant wrote that the pledge receipts matched the pledges. I exhaled the long exhale you keep for the moment the numbers and the lives agree. Lila texted twice without links. The first, "I'm meeting with a therapist, no camera." The second, "Do you still have your old copy of The Giving Tree? It's underlined, and I want to see what you wrote in the margins." I replied that it was on the top shelf, left side, next to the dictionary our father had used to teach us synonyms for enough. She wrote back, "Check a heart. No brand, just a heart." It felt like progress. Teresa suggested coffee in a public garden near the branch library. I set terms. 15 minutes, no speeches, 1 apology. No guests named Memory. She agreed. We sat on a bench where small children threw crumbs at birds who didn't need them. She wore her good coat like armor and took it off like surrender. "I thought ambition would keep us safe," she said. "It kept me safe. I tried to issue it to you like a passport. I prefer visas," I said. "Temporary permissions. Reviewed often." "I made a room where only winning could speak," she said. "You built rooms where true sentences can live. I am not good at those." She looked smaller than last night's stories had allowed. "I want to learn." "You can bring flowers to a staff room without arranging them," I said. "You can sit in the back and be proud without a microphone. You can come to therapy." She nodded, as if learning a new word. "Yes," she said, and it sounded like a sentence. We finished at last. That evening, Julian and I walked past the Halcyon house, which in daylight looks oddly sincere. columns doing their job without applause, glass reflecting whichever sky is available. Luis waved from the door. "Your wall of notes is trending with the kids," he called. "They come in and point to their favorites." "Which one wins?" I asked. He laughed. "It's not a contest, Miss Wynne. But the porch one is popular, and the one about the bus that stopped going past the stop." "Good taste," I said. At home, we cooked a soup that tasted like the color green and ate it on the couch, paperwork spread around like a fort made of rectangles. The television murmured politely to an empty room. When we were done, I opened my laptop and wrote a short letter to the people who had come last night. Thank you for staying with the work when the story tried to get loud. Thank you for writing true sentences. Thank you for paying for very boring things that change lives. We'll see you in C. Classrooms, I added a P.S. If you wrote a sentence about a room that changed you, send it. We're building a wall in every school. We want students to know that adults remember. I hit send and closed the lid and let silence do the job sound can't. And now, because this story began in a room and has wandered into yours, I'm going to ask you for something simple. If you've ever had to redraw a room in your life, if you've stood at a microphone you bought yourself, or walked out of a script you didn't write, or learned the difference between loud and true, tell me your one sentence in the comments below. Tell me about the kitchen table where no one interrupted you, the classroom that finally heard you, the office where you stopped whispering. I read every comment. Your sentences help someone else breathe. If this story held you, tap like so the algorithm understands that quiet can win a room. Subscribe for more true room stories, wins, misses, and the receipts in between. And share this with someone who's building their own space. We're funding 3 more schools this quarter. I'll bring you into the rooms as they learn how to speak. Until then, be simple, be specific, be steady, and keep the light on for the truth.